SpaceX just secured official approval for 44 Starship launches per year from Florida's LC-39A. The Space Force resolved the LOX-Methane safety debate that Blue Origin and ULA used to challenge SpaceX's launch cadence. What makes this decision even more interesting? Both competitors also fly methane-oxygen rockets, yet they wanted restrictions only on SpaceX. Colonel Chapman from Space Launch, Delta 45 confirmed Starship will launch from Florida in early to mid-2026. How did the Space Force solve the blast radius concerns? Let's dive right in. Right now, SpaceX is operating under pressure that would crush most companies. They're still dealing with the Booster 18 incident at Starbase, simultaneously upgrading Launch Pad 1 while racing to complete Launch Pad 2. And that's just in Texas. Over in Florida, the workload is even more intense. Finishing the Starship pad at LC-39A, building 2 more at SLC-37B, and constructing not 1 but 2 massive gigabays for production. When you're the world's #1 private space company, every single mistake gets scrutinized under a microscope. So how does SpaceX keep pushing forward despite this enormous workload? The answer came directly from Colonel Brian L. Chapman, commander of Space Launch Delta 45. During a media discussion about the 100th launch of the year at the Space Coast, he dropped the exact timeline everyone has been waiting for. Early to mid next year is when we anticipate Starship coming out here to be able to launch, and we'll have the range rated to support at that time, Chapman stated. He added that KSC is leading the partnership with SpaceX at LC-39A to support Starship development. This means sometime between January and June 2026, we could witness Starship's first flight from Florida. But wait, wasn't this timeline supposed to be delayed by safety concerns from competitors? Here's where the story gets fascinating. Blue Origin and ULA mounted a serious campaign last year to slow down SpaceX's operations. Their argument centered on safety, claiming that SpaceX's aggressive launch schedule would force them to repeatedly evacuate personnel from their own pads. The FAA's final environmental impact statement, published in August 2025, approved 44 launches per year from LC-39A alone. That number terrified SpaceX's competitors. Think about what 44 Starship launches means. Nearly 1 launch every 8 days from a single pad, with each flight generating 17 million pounds of thrust and producing 3 separate moments of roaring Raptor engines, twice from the Super Heavy booster and once from Starship during its return. How could the Space Force possibly approve such an intense schedule while addressing legitimate safety concerns? Colonel Chapman's team had to tackle the LOX-Methane safety debate head-on. When we talk about public safety, we're talking about risk, Chapman explained. Today we treat a LOX-Methane analysis as equivalent to 100% TNT in terms of blast radius. This is the critical detail that nearly derailed SpaceX's Florida expansion. Because Starship runs on methane-oxygen propellant and is designed for full reusability, the safety zones are significantly larger than those used for Falcon 9. The blast damage assessments had to account for worst-case scenarios during testing and launches, extending far beyond the spaceport gates. But here's the twist that invalidated the competitors' arguments. Both Blue Origin's New Glenn and ULA's Vulcan Centaur also use LOX-Methane systems. Chapman's unit couldn't implement restrictions that only applied to SpaceX without creating an unfair competitive environment. So limiting launches only for SpaceX wouldn't be fair, the logic followed. If SpaceX flies more often, it demonstrates superior launch capability, and more flights ultimately benefit national security. This reasoning became Chapman's foundation for supporting SpaceX's ambitious schedule. What made his decision even more defensible? The data from Falcon 9 operations provided the proof of concept. SpaceX's workhorse rocket is already flying at a similar pace, over 100 missions per year. The blast hazard areas for these launches are small and short-lived because the Space Force's confidence in Falcon 9's safety is extremely high, Chapman noted. This track record gave him confidence that Starship could eventually achieve the same safety level. At that point in the future, I expect blast damage assessments to gradually decrease based on the tests that have been conducted, he added. This wasn't just optimistic speculation. It was based on observable trends from Falcon 9's evolution from experimental rocket to the world's most reliable launch vehicle. Chapman's support extends beyond just approving launch schedules. His unit, Space Launch Delta 45, ensures that all personnel stay clear of danger zones during Starship testing and launches, manages public safety beyond the spaceport gates, and maintains security across the region during these historic operations. "There's no better time to be present at the Space Coast than right now," Chapman said. "We're breaking records for launch frequency, we're gaining orbital capability, which is essential for national security, and we're doing it at a strategically challenging time." His enthusiasm isn't just about SpaceX. It reflects the broader transformation happening in American spaceflight. Now let's talk about the physical progress at LC-39A. The last major construction milestone happened in early November when SpaceX installed the OOLM, Orbital Launch Mount, onto the flame trench system. This wasn't just another installation. It represents the completion of the heaviest and most complex infrastructure work. The pad is now expected to become operational in early 2026, perfectly aligning with Chapman's timeline. Once active, this single launch complex will support an operation that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. But what happens after SpaceX proves Starship's reliability at LC-39A? The expansion plan is already in motion at SLC-37B, where SpaceX has proposed 2 additional pads capable of supporting up to 76 Starship launches per year combined. These pads are currently under environmental impact statement review by the U.S. Space Force. The FAA opened the public comment period in September, and the draft is being updated into the final EIS. Given Colonel Chapman's stated support and the precedent set by LC-39A's approval, the official decision isn't expected to face significant delays. Construction began in June 2025, so after 5 months, visible progress is still limited. These pads are projected to become operational around 2027. When all 3 Florida pads go live, SpaceX could theoretically conduct 120 Starship launches annually from the East Coast alone. That leads to a critical question. Where will all these Starships come from? Florida doesn't have a star factory or megabays like Starbase Texas. SpaceX's solution is rising right now at Roberts Road, approximately 8 miles from LC-39A and 9 miles from SLC-37B. The Gigabay under construction will be absolutely massive, over 75,700 square meters of floor space, roughly equivalent to 10 football fields, reaching 116 meters tall with 24 giant assembly ports. This allows simultaneous work on multiple boosters and ships. The production capacity is staggering. 1 super heavy booster every 5 to 7 days, and 1 Starship upper stage every 7 to 10 days. When it comes online in late 2026 or early 2027, this single facility could theoretically produce 50 to 70 complete Starship Super Heavy pairs every year. But there's a logistical challenge. With the production site located miles from both launch complexes, SpaceX will need road closures every time a Starship or Super Heavy is transported from Roberts Road to either pad. That's a complex operation requiring precise coordination. However, this is SpaceX we're talking about, a company that doesn't make infrastructure decisions without calculating hundreds of steps ahead in the supply chain. They've already proven this capability by routinely transporting Falcon 9 stages across similar distances. Until the Florida Gigabay reaches full production capacity, every Starship launching from the East Coast will begin with a long ocean voyage. SpaceX plans to ship all Super Heavy boosters and Starship vehicles from Starbase, Texas to Florida by sea using their new generation heavy barges. These stages will cross the Gulf of Mexico, loop around the tip of Florida, and arrive at Port Canaveral, just a few kilometers from LC-39A. Giant cranes will lift them upright, and PMTs will roll them directly to the pad or into the integration tower. SpaceX has 2 massive barges on order, scheduled for delivery in late 2025 to early 2026, turning this into a routine operation similar to how Falcon 9 stages have long been brought ashore in Florida. Throughout 2026 and possibly into early 2027, we'll witness this fascinating maritime chapter, watching Starships make the journey from Texas to Florida before their missions begin. Only when the Gigabay reaches full manufacturing capacity will Florida-built Starships finally take flight from LC-39A. The infrastructure investment is enormous, but it positions SpaceX to fundamentally transform access to space. Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's influential COO, has made the company's long-term strategy clear in several interviews. Even though Falcon 9 is highly reliable and flying over 100 missions annually, it will eventually be replaced by Starship for satellite launches. The economics are compelling. Starship is cheaper per launch, can carry far more satellites, and is at least 3 times more efficient. For SpaceX, reaching 120 Starship missions per year just from Florida represents enormous revenue and massive profits. For their competitors, it's a nightmare scenario, facing the possibility that SpaceX could leave them decades behind in technology, income, and most critically, customer trust. Here's the bottom line. SpaceX secured official approval for 44 Starship launches per year from LC-39A, with operations starting early to mid-2026. Colonel Chapman in Space Launch Delta 45 resolved the LOX-Methane safety debate by applying equal standards to all companies. SpaceX, Blue Origin, and ULA all use the same propellant, so restrictions couldn't target just one company. The decision was based on Falcon 9's proven safety record and national security interests, not politics. With the Gigabay producing up to 70 Starship pairs annually and 3 pads coming online by 2027, Florida is about to become the East Coast hub for heavy-lift spaceflight. The infrastructure is being built right now, and the first launch from LC-39A is less than a year away. What do you think about this approval? Will competitors catch up or fall further behind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit the like button right now. Subscribe to Space Update 24 hours and turn on notifications so you don't miss our coverage of Starship's first Florida launch. We'll be tracking every milestone from construction to liftoff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.